for this incident? Let's ask CNN military analyst Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. I'm also joined by former UN and State Department official David Tafuri. He's also a former Obama advisor. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning, Carol.
Thank you.
Good morning. So before we get into the weeds, General, should America apologize to Iran for this?
Well, we're talking about a ship that somehow wandered into territorial waters, Carol, and I think it would be appropriate in this case. You have to, sometimes when you make mistakes in the military, you have to say, boy, we botched this, sorry about that. This is not a big deal. This is not bowing to another nation. It's just maintaining territorial integrity and ensuring that they know the laws of conflict are adhered to.
Oh, but General, you know what many Americans are going to say. Are you kidding, General? Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get a lot of heat for that statement, but that's what you do. And truthfully, Carol, you know, everyone knows that the U.S. military is very good at what they do. As the President said last night, maybe a little bit too much hubris. We're the best in the world. I'm not sure, or the best that's ever been. But you know what? These are young people, and they make mistakes. They might have had a mechanical error or a GPS malfunction or just bad map reading, but something wrong happened. And so I think it's appropriate to say we didn't adhere to your territorial waters, and we apologize for that.
Okay. David, I think another concern for Americans is Iran shifting messages yesterday, the reasoning that it had for holding these Americans. First, the Iranians said the sailors trespassed. Then it said it was a rescue operation. As I said, they demanded an apology, ultimately deeming this situation unintentional. What do you make of this shifting message from the Iranians on what exactly happened in the Persian Gulf?
Well, this could have been a real disaster for President Obama. On the day he's giving his last State of the Union speech, he's going to talk about the Iran agreement. U.S. sailors get taken hostage by Iran. But it seems to have worked out. The Iran messaging is sort of perplexing, but I think this all happened in a very short period. And Iran, of course, is also struggling to figure out what happened, why these sailors and this ship were in Iran's territorial waters. And likely there's some dissension within Iran about how to deal with this. The hardliners, of course, want to use this to show that they can get back at the U.S., whereas the moderates who really want the agreement to go forward and desperately want the sanctions relief that's going to come very soon probably insisted on taking a much softer line on dealing with the U.S. and giving these sailors back as quickly as possible, which is exactly what happened. That's what President Obama tried to explain last night was his policy for dealing with rogue nations, to bring the international community to reach an agreement, to galvanize support for that agreement, and then to work out problems like this through diplomacy. So far, it looks like that's how this has worked out, and it's a positive for the president.
Okay, so the other interesting thing here, and maybe it has something to do with the Iran deal, I don't know, General, but the Iranians not only returned the sailors, but they returned their boats. What should we make of that?
Well, I think a couple things, Carol. First of all, you know, they teach all of us at the war colleges relationships matter. When you have an engagement over a year like the Secretary did with Mr. Jafir, this is something that you can't replace that. The phone call between Secretary Kerry and Secretary Carter and the Iranian Prime Minister was important. But I think they returned the boat because, truthfully, it's a boat. It's a small RCB. They have some machine guns on them. It carries a crew of 5, and it can load other passengers on it. And it has encrypted radios, but that's about it. It doesn't have any spying devices. It doesn't have anything that would intimidate Iran. You know, compared to like the USS Pueblo in North Korea, where it literally was a spy ship, and the North Koreans kept it. This was just really a 38-foot boat that they said, hey, let's put these sailors back on board and get them out to the fleet. And I think it's because of what's been happening over the last year plus between the two countries' relationships.
Okay, so David, one last time, because many Republicans are very concerned about this Iranian nuclear deal, and so are many Americans, frankly. So what should we take away from this incident as it applies to this Iranian nuclear deal, if anything?
Well, I also have concerns about the Iranian nuclear deal. The biggest problem with the Iranian nuclear deal is we have to see, is this going to change Iran's behavior? And we really don't know. And there's been indication that maybe it's not, with Iran, testing new missile systems, with Iran doing other provocations very close to the U.S. military. But this shows perhaps a change in behavior, and probably as a result of the agreement. So in addition to what the general said, which is the relationships are very important, so the relationship between Secretary Kerry and the foreign minister of Iran and how that has developed through the agreement, we also see the agreement and the inducements to Iran, including the sanctions relief, probably causing Iran to take a softer line and release these sailors very quickly, much more quickly than it's released hostages in the past. You remember the Iran hostage crisis, different circumstances, but they held our embassy personnel for more than 400 days. Iran previously captured some British sailors, held them for almost 2 weeks. This was resolved in 1 day, which is a success.
All right, David Tafuri, General Mark.